Today we're going to read The Berenstain Bears in the Dark by Stan and Jan Berenstain. Brother Bear, said Sister impatiently, are you going to take all day to pick your books? Sister and Brother Bear were at the Bear Country Library. Sister had already chosen her books and was waiting at the checkout desk. Hold your horses, said Brother. I'm looking for a good mystery book. See, Sister Bear has two books here. One is red and the other is blue. Brother Bear has two books. One is green and the other is orange. But he's still looking for the right mystery book in the mystery section. He's in the Cubs corner of the library. Here's the library desk. On this side where it says OUT, out, you check out books with your library card so you can take them home for a few days, and then when it's time to return them, you go to this side that says IN, in, and the librarian will check them back into the library and put them back on the shelf so someone else can enjoy the book. Sister Bear usually took out storybooks and books about nature, and sometimes books of poems. Brother liked those too, but lately he'd become interested in mysteries, especially spooky ones. Hey, this one looks good, he said, finally. Okay, let's check out. Said Sister. Looking at the cover, it was called The Case of the Crying Cave. It looks scary to me. Say, this is really good, said Brother later that evening, when the Bear family had settled down for some reading. Would you like me to read it to you? He asked Sister. Sister was looking at a storybook about 3 kittens who were arguing about which was the prettiest, and it was a little boring. Sister's book is called The Silly Kittens, and Mama is reading a magazine called Bear Country Gardens, while Papa reads the newspaper. Or are you scared? Teased Brother. Of course not, said Sister. She left her book on the floor and climbed onto the bench to sit beside him. The mystery began quietly. It told about some Bear Scouts who were on an overnight camp out. When the Scouts discovered a dark secret cave, Brother's mystery began to get a little exciting, and when the cave began to cry and wail, it was anything but quiet. Woo! Cried the deep, dark, mysterious cave, read Brother with a loud expression. Woo! Stop! Said Sister, putting her fingers in her ears. That's enough! And she went back to her storybook. Scaredy bear, teased Brother. And that's quite enough of that, added Papa Bear, looking up from his paper. Papa Bear doesn't like it when Brother teases his little sister. At the Cubs' bedtime, Papa and Mama said goodnight, turned off the light, and left the Cubs in the usual sleepy darkness. Outside the treehouse, the bright, busy sounds of day had given way to the soft, soothing sounds of night. The quiet conversation of frogs and toads, the soft cry of the owl, the sigh of the night wind. And if you listened very hard, you could almost hear the softest sound of all, the sound of lightning bugs switching their lights on and off, on and off. Everyone looks pretty happy and content, except for Sister. In case you didn't know, this is their treehouse. I know what you're thinking. You can't live in a tree, but the Berenstain Bears do, and I think it looks cozy. What do you see here in the dark? There is the moon, the lightning bugs, a couple owls, and some toads and frogs. Toads and frogs are both a type of amphibian, but frogs generally have longer legs and smooth skin covered in mucus, whereas toads have shorter legs and rougher, thicker skin. Here, they're sitting on lily pads, rocks, and a stump in and around the pond. But inside the treehouse, Sister Bear wasn't even beginning to fall asleep. That night, the dark didn't seem the least bit quiet and sleepy. In fact, it seemed like the spooky darkness of a scary cave. And the friendly old chest of drawers and funny clothes tree that Papa had made didn't seem so friendly and funny. They seemed more like cave creatures. So when Brother decided to tease her a little more by making a wailing noise, a really spooky wailing noise, it gave her quite a scare. "Ooh! Mama! Papa!" she cried. "Hurry! Come quick!" And come quickly they did. Papa rushed into the dark room and tripped over the clothes tree. Mama rushed in after Papa and tripped over him. In the commotion, Sister fell out of her bed and landed on both of them. Uh-oh, that's probably a good reason not to run in the dark. Then Brother, who had started it all with his spooky wail, turned on the light. What a mess! Sister, still scared, was holding on to Papa. Papa was holding on to the toe he had stubbed, and Mama was looking for the nightcap she had lost in the confusion. All three of them were pretty annoyed with Brother Bear. It turned out to be a very long night in the bear's treehouse. Papa and Mama tried to explain that there was nothing to be afraid of in the dark, except maybe running into a clothes tree and stubbing your toe. But it didn't do any good. Sister absolutely refused to go to sleep with the light off, and Brother positively insisted that he couldn't fall asleep with the light on. So maybe his teasing was too much. Sister is now afraid of the dark, and he can't go to sleep with the light on. The next morning, the Bear family was very sleepy-eyed. "Boy," said Brother, yawning. "I sure don't want to go through another night like that." "Neither do I," said Papa. "And I think I have an idea that might help." They sure do look tired. No one is really eating their breakfast, and that's not good. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. But that honey looks good. He took Sister's hand. "Come with me," he said. "Where are we going?" she wanted to know. "Up to the attic." "The attic? But it's dark in the attic, even in the daytime." "I know," said Papa, "but there's something I want to show you." Anyway, there's nothing so special about the dark. It's just part of nature, like the light. It's your imagination that makes the dark seem so spooky sometimes. "What's imagination?" asked Sister. "That's a good question. Do you know what imagination is? Let's find out." Imagination is what makes us think that chests of drawers and clothes trees are cave creatures. "I wish I didn't have one," said Sister. "Don't say that," said Papa. "A lively imagination is one of the best things a cub can have. It's imagination that lets us paint pictures, make up poems, invent inventions. The trick is to take charge of your imagination and not let it take charge of you." When they got to the attic, Papa began to rummage through boxes looking for something. "Can you name everything they store in their attic?" "There's a broken mirror, a baby carriage. This could be a table maybe. Some books, a broom, some flowering pots, and a trowel, which is a small gardening shovel. There's a clock in the back on a piece of furniture, and green and yellow chest. This looks like a barrel, and I wonder what this stick is for, with the string tied around it. This is a good time to use your imagination. Maybe it's a fishing pole or part of a game. What ideas can you come up with?" Sister tried to follow Papa's advice and not let her imagination take charge, and it worked. A spooky shape turned out to be the shadow of some old tools. This is a wrench, a mallet, a handsaw, pliers, and this looks like a wood carving tool called a punch. What looked like a giant was really some piled up furniture. Here it is, said Papa, my old nightlight. The one I used when I was a cub and had a little trouble falling asleep in the dark. Sister couldn't quite believe that her big, powerful Papa was ever afraid of the dark. Oh, sure, said Papa. Most of us are at one time or another. Wow, her Papa's real nice, getting her a nice nightlight for the dark. How about reading the rest of The Case of the Crying Cave? Sister asked Brother later that day. Are you sure you want me to? Sure, I want to see how it turns out, she insisted. When it turned out that there was nothing very spooky about the terrible wailing noise, it was caused by wind blowing across an opening in the roof of the cave, like the noise you make when you blow across the top of a bottle. Sister was a little disappointed. And that night, when she and Brother were all settled down in the cozy glow of Papa's old nightlight, she said so. I was pretty disappointed by the way the Case of the Crying Cave ended. Why? Asked Brother. Because, she said, I was hoping the wailing would be a really spooky, scary monster, and she leaned down from her bunk over Brother's and made a spooky, scary monster face at him. Cut that out, cried Brother. Then Sister went right to sleep, but Brother lay awake for quite some time, listening to the owl hoots and thinking that maybe he'd had enough mysteries for a while. The end. Join us next time.